Good morning, good afternoon, good day, everybody. Welcome to this month's webinar from Kudos. This month, it's not me giving the webinar, it is my colleague and co-founder, David Sommer, our Chief Product Officer. So I'm going to hand over to David now for the rest of the webinar. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Charlie. And hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on how to use Kudos to increase your research impact. So my name is David Sommer. I'm going to be your tutor for today's webinar. I'm one of the co-founders and the Chief Product Officer at Kudos. And Kudos is a platform for showcasing science so that more people can understand, use, and cite it. So a couple of housekeeping items to go through just before we start. You have a chat button on your Zoom toolbar. So if you have any audio-visual issues with Zoom during today's webinar, please just type a message in the chat box and one of my colleagues will do their best to help you and get you up and running. Also, if you have any questions about the topics that we're covering this afternoon, then please also use the chat box as well, and we'll compile all of those questions at the end and get through as many as we can. And I'd encourage you to use the chat box for questions during the presentation rather than just waiting till the end so we can get the sort of most popular questions answered for you. Also, we'll be sending you a link following this webinar with a recording of the session, so you can review the material again if you want to, or if you had colleagues perhaps that couldn't be with us today, please do share the link with them so they can also watch this session. So in terms of what we're going to be covering today, some of you will be brand new to Kudos, won't have registered, won't have used it at all. Some of you may have dabbled a little bit and used some of it. Some of you may be experts and used it extensively. So whichever category you're in, you'll get something of value out of today's session because I'm going to cover not just the basics, but also some expert sort of top tips to help you get the maximum out of it with the minimum effort as well. So yes, that should be useful. So over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to cover the basics of setting up your account, adding your article lists, and then using stories to really tell the story of your research through plain language summaries. I'll talk about how you can share and communicate about your research across multiple channels, online and offline channels, how we bring together all of the different metrics that you might be interested in one place to save you time. And then I'll also cover some of the additional features available, such as adding resource links, data sets, images, videos, and so on, infographics, and also I'll be showing you your personal showcase, which is a new feature. We also have a bonus feature for you right at the end as well, which I will talk about at the end. So look out for that. And then we'll do the questions at the end. So do add questions, as I mentioned. Okay, so let's get into the demo. So this is Kudos, growkudos.com. Do have a play around. There's loads of great stories to browse around, and you can go into some of our staff picks or look at some of the subjects down there as well. But today I'm really going to focus on you as a researcher wanting to communicate about your research. So if you've not already registered, it's very easy. It's free to register. There's a link in the menu. It's just growkudos.com/register, and you can fill out your first name, last name, email, and password. So it's a very, very simple process to register. You'll get an email confirming it, and then you're all set up. So when you've registered and click on the link, you will go through to your Kudos Hub. And this is what my Kudos Hub looks like. So it's got your name at the top, it's got some tabs, and then it will have your article list down here. When you've just registered, your article list will probably be empty, so you won't have anything there initially. So you'll be wanting to add some articles to that list. If you've been invited by one of our publishing partners, then you may already have a couple of articles listed that your publisher has automatically added for you. But either way, if you want to add publications, just click on the Add Publication button there, and that will take you to a page like this, where you can add your article or claim your article, which is basically saying this article is mine. So there's three ways that you can claim. You can enter the DOI if you know that, so the Digital Object Identifier. That's a code that starts with 10 dot and then it's got some numbers and letters, and it's the unique identifier for your article. So you can just type that in and search for it. That will usually be in communications with your publisher. It'll be on the online version of your article and probably the PDF as well. So if you want a very specific article to add, that's the best way to go. You can also search for your publication, and I would recommend typing in a couple of keywords from the title and your surname as well. So I have an article on impact resonance, so I could just search for that, and then that will go through and pull up a list of matches, and there is my article right at the top there, and there'll be a claim button over there which you can click. I've already claimed it, so that's why it says unclaimed. So that's also a good way to find your work. And the final sort of method is by using ORCID. So we're partners with ORCID, and if you have a free ORCID account, then you can set up your article list within ORCID and then connect Kudos with ORCID. So it will automatically pull in your full list of articles straight into Kudos, which will save you time as well. So that's a really great way to do that. And it also stays up to date. So as you add more to ORCID every week, it sort of pulls through the latest publications as well. So 3 different ways that you can add your articles to Kudos. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is actually creating your story. So telling the story of your research through plain language summaries. And before we do that, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of the sort of thing that other people have set up, and then we'll go through an example from scratch together. So I'm going to have a look at this one first of all, which is one of my favorite articles of recent times, which is, did you fake that certificate or were you awarded it? We can tell from the fingerprints. So this sounds intriguing. This is the story page for this particular article. So it's not the full text. You can click through very easily and read the full text. This one is on the Royal Society of Chemistry site. And if you do that and have a little read through the abstract there, this is fairly difficult stuff to understand just at a glance. Chronology of second ion mass spectrometry, TOFIS, SIMS models, blah, blah, blah. Quite difficult to understand just at a glance. Whereas if you look at the plain language page that they've created on Kudos here, it's really interesting. It's using sensitive analysis to look at residue of fingerprints on documents to work out whether somebody printed on top of a blank document that you might have faked your certificate on, or whether it's genuinely come from some accredited organization and then you've handled it. So what's the sequence in which things happened? Really, really interesting. You wouldn't have got that so quickly from the full text. So there's the what's it about, which is the plain language, non-technical summary. They've added a nice image here to make it really sort of stand out and pop from the page. And then they've added a why is it important as well, which talks about, in forensics, why this sort of analysis is really important as well. So you're really sort of getting into this article without having gone through that really sort of deep, impenetrable abstract and the full text at this stage. There's also a perspective from one of the authors here about the funding and where this work is going and why it's so important, and they've added some links as well. So that's the sort of thing that we're looking for. You can see this is much more engaging than the abstract would have been. And it's not just more engaging, it's going to be easier to find because people searching either within Kudos or on Google and other search engines are more likely to be typing in keywords than some of the very sort of technical language as well. So it's easier to find, which means it's more likely to be read, more likely to be used and cited. And also, if you're trying to reach broader audiences, so not just researchers talking to researchers, but also we know increasingly you need to communicate to funders, the public, the media, educators, practitioners, and so on, policymakers. It really helps them find this as well. So that is the page that we're looking at here. I'm going to show you a couple of other examples. Thermobase, the first complete database of heat-loving microbes. Again, if you click through and read the full text, or read the abstract, this is again fairly tricky stuff to understand, but here they've done a really nice job. Just a paragraph, an image, and a why it's important, and a perspective. And the perspectives really bring these pages to life as well. So I'm an astrobiologist, which means I aim to investigate the overlap between the study of life and study of space. So this suddenly sounds more interesting. And then it's talking about using this database to understand things that might live in faraway galaxies as well. So this is about life on other planets. So what seems like a fairly sort of dense, impenetrable abstract here is now something that's really quite exciting and you may well want to read. One more example I'm going to show you, which is the best way to control Japanese knotweed. Again, this is a really kind of nice example of something that's very technical if you start reading some of this abstract data here. And here they've boiled it down into a nice sort of snappy what's it about, and then a why it's important. It's important because we can use lower doses of herbicide to manage Japanese knotweed with their perspective. So those are the sorts of pages that we're aiming for. This is what we refer to as the story. This is the story of your research. It's not the full text. You can very easily click through and read the full text, but it's the sort of the page that explains what it's all about. So let's have a look at how we create one of these pages then. So you've gone in, you've claimed your articles, you've maybe got your most recent article listed on the hub. So when you click on that, you'll go through to a page that looks a little bit like this. So this is the blank page before anything's been done so far. So at the top, this box is your friend up here. This is telling you the first two things that you should do: add a what's it about and add a featured image. And if you do nothing else, if you just do those two things, that in itself will add value. So if you click on what's it about, it will scroll you down to that section of the page, and there's a box where you can type in your what's it about. So it's a simple, sort of non-technical, plain lay summary of the publication. So it's not the abstract, but it's just the plain language, how you would describe it to a friend, somebody who wasn't a specialist in this area. If you click on see examples, then you can see the sort of level of the length and the level of language we're looking for in there. And there's a little character count as well. We recommend over 250 characters. So as you type, that count increases, and between 250 and 500 characters roughly. So 3 or 4 lines is what we're looking for there. I'm going to switch to my publication rather than start explaining somebody else's publication. So this is my publication in Learned Publishing, and you can see there is my what's it about there. And I've also gone down and added some other fields as well. And the second thing I want to mention is the featured image. So if you remember back on this one, we said that there were 2 things: what's it about and the image. So the image is really important because this really brings your article to life on our showcases, which I'll show you in a moment. So we have a partnership with Unsplash, which means we have access to millions of license-approved images that you can use without having to worry about the rights. That's all taken care of. So in this box here, you would just type in a couple of keywords relating to your image. So if I was writing something about trees, for example, then it's pulling up millions of images. Literally, there's millions of images available, and you can just think about which one would help your article really pop. So that one looks really nice. I'm going to select that one, save that. And then there's a toggle button up here, which switches to the reader view. So that is the public view for my publication. You can see that nice image is already there. It's instantaneous. And then the toggle up there takes you back to the edit view. So you can make some changes, see how it looks, go backwards and forwards, and then it's live immediately. So that's a really nice feature for getting your page live. Once you've done those 2 things, you've added the plain language summary, the what's it about, and the image, it is then automatically added to our various showcases. So this is a Wiley publication. So if I click on Wiley, for example, there, this is the Wiley showcase that is all Wiley research. And there is my publication with its nice new image. So adding an image and adding that what's it about will get you on those various showcases. That means more people will find your work within Kudos, but also coming in from Google as well, because we optimize these pages for Google. So not only are you in the various publisher showcases, this is the PLOS showcase, which is another example of a publisher showcase, but you're also included on our subject showcases. So this is the life sciences sort of showcase. So if my article was about life sciences, that would automatically be there as well. And also we include those articles on our university showcases. So if you're at a university, we also have Kudos tools that you can use within your university or research group as well. So your work is included here as well. And you can see by adding those images, it makes it really visual, makes it pop out. And there's lots of research that shows articles with images, whether it's on Kudos or Twitter and so on, are more read. So I would strongly encourage you to add those images. So if you're only going to do 2 things, add the image and add the plain language summary to the what's it about there. You can add additional fields as well. So you'll see that there's also a why is it important here. So why is it important is why is it timely? Why is it unique? Why should somebody spend time actually writing or reading this particular article? So the why it's important is really useful. And the perspectives are also really important. So let's just go back to the live page here. So the perspective here is often a quote. It's often the researcher saying something about their progression through their career. It brings the article to life. So you start to get the sort of the personalities behind the research coming through. And that often can be one of the most popular parts of the page, and it certainly draws in traffic from the search engines. So I've got an example here where multiple authors have added perspective. So there's multiple authors on this paper. And as I scroll down, they've created a nice what's it about, they've added an image, and then 3 of them have written perspectives here. So you've got Rachel, Matthew, and Luke have all written their own perspectives. So you start to get the different sort of perspectives on this bit of research, and everyone's got their own angle, and you start to get a sense of the team behind this research. So yeah, really, really important to add those perspectives. And a top tip is to invite your co-authors to add their perspective. So you can just send them an email with a link there. Or if you go to the edit page, then down there is an invite your co-authors button, which will just open a blank email. You can type a message with the link there. It only takes them a couple of minutes to do, and adding co-author perspectives can really boost the number of views that you get, and therefore the citation potential there as well. So I would strongly encourage that you add perspectives and fill in as much of the page as you can. It generally takes about 15 to 20 minutes to make your story page. Often this information is available elsewhere, so you might have used this in a grant funding application or in a presentation you've given, so often you're not writing this from scratch. Sometimes this is available, but it's all in separate silos. And what we do is bring it all together here, so it's all central, and it kind of reinforces the other content around it as well. So I would strongly recommend you do that. The other thing I just want to mention briefly is the guidance that we have within the system itself. So if I go back to this example, you'll see we have a percentage complete. So 85% complete, and the recommended next action here is ask your co-authors to add their perspectives. So once you've done those first 2 things, you see I've got a green symbol up here because I've already done those first 2 things, then the right-hand column here is where we recommend what you should do next to get that up to 100%, to really maximize the communication potential for your work. And then you can take the action there. But you can do things in any order. If you want to do things in a different order, that's absolutely fine as well. Okay, so that is what I wanted to go through in terms of the story page itself. Just to mention again, we don't host the full text, but that is easily accessible through the read article link there. We also repeat that link at the bottom if people get to there and want to read from there as well. And we track the number of clicks through to the full text as well. So I'll talk about metrics in a moment, but there's lots of information available there for you. Okay, so let's move on to the next step then, which is about sharing your work with different networks. So again, if I go through to my edit page and scroll down past those boxes, you'll find the share panel. So this is where you can create a trackable link that you can share in multiple ways on multiple different channels, and then you can see which have been most effective. So we encourage you to make as many links as you can, and then you'll learn which channels are really good, which ones are less good, so you can do more of the stuff that works essentially. So the simplest thing to do is just to make a link. So that's the default one there. You can give your link a label, which helps for you to track it. So you can type a label. So I'll just type in demo test, for example, generate a link, and there is my trackable link. And that is a unique link which I can copy. I could then paste that into a new browser window just to sort of simulate. Imagine that's on Twitter or that's on a presentation. And when I click on that, it will go through to the public version of that page. So there's no toggle to go and edit it. You can't see the metrics because it's just the public version. But that now counts as a click, and that is tracked against that label. So later on, you'll be able to see how you can use the different labels to see which channels are most effective. You can, of course, share to social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on. If you're in China, then you can use Weibo and WeChat, the Chinese social networks. That's available. But ResearchGate is a really popular sharing channel. So with ResearchGate, what we enable you to do is download a PDF version of your story page, and then you can post that to ResearchGate, academia, and other platforms. So here is an example I created earlier of a PDF of my article. So you can see the image, what's it about, why it's important, and there's a read publication link in there as well. And that can be posted copyright free because there's no publisher copyright issues here because it's your content that you've created. So it's a publicly available page. Therefore, you can post that on ResearchGate. Here's an example of a ResearchGate page for Toby Green. This is a publicly available page, and he's created a plain language summary in this PDF and added that to his page there. And if you click on read publication, that will go straight through to the publisher site, which is Wiley in this case. So it's a great way of tapping into the network within ResearchGate and other platforms and using that to drive traffic through in a way that's really measurable. So yeah, that's just one of the ways in which you can use the sharing tools, but you can use as many of these as you want. Some really good examples here would be if you're not a social media person, maybe you're not a fan of Twitter and you want to share in other ways. Maybe you're going to be at a poster session, then you can make a link. You could label that as poster and then make a QR code from that and actually include that on your poster. And then anyone that takes a picture of your poster, you can count that as a click and see how much attention your poster has had. Or another really easy way is to add that into your email signature. So at the bottom of your email, where you have your name and your institution, you can add a link to your latest article or to your showcase of work as well. So there's lots of really creative ways in which you can use those different trackable links. They're trackable. That's the really important thing there. So once you've been sharing, you'll want to see how effective all of that's been. So you can then look at your publication metrics, which are easily available from your article page. I should just show you where that link is. So if you click on publication metrics, you'll go through to your metrics page. And we show all users an overview of their metrics. So how many times you've shared, how many clicks you've had on those shares, how many times your plain language page, the story page on Kudos has been viewed, how many click-throughs there have been to the full text. And we also show the altmetric score and the cross-ref citation count. So we partner with altmetric, a really important partner for us. And if you click on that donut, you go through to the altmetrics details page where you can get the summary information about that. So how many times it's been blogged, how many tweets, and you can go in and click in that sort of preview and see some of the detail there behind that number as well. So that's a really good way of tracking the online attention in those public channels that your work is getting. So that is the metrics, and there's more advanced metrics available down here that I'll talk about for premium users in a moment as well. So the other thing to mention is the author profile. So every user on Kudos gets their own author profile page. So this is a publicly available page that can include your photo if you want to include that. It includes your name, your institution, as much information as you want to add there. For this particular researcher, they've got 89 stories. They're all listed out down there, so you can sort of see all the different publications in this sort of text listing here. And all of their co-authors that have claimed are also linked. So this means it's really easy to discover work from your research group. So if I click on Alison's link there, you'll go through to her page. She's got 23 stories. She's also co-authored with Professor Rubin. He has got 84. So you can sort of go around and it makes it really easy for the search engines and for readers to find and discover your work and your colleagues' work. So that's why it's a really good idea to invite your co-authors to come and use Kudos and claim your articles. It also shows any other resources on the right there that you want to include. So links to social platforms, ResearchGate, academia, your ORCID profile, and so on. So you can include as much or as little as you want on that side over there. And it's really easy to edit that. So you just click on edit page and you'll go through then to back to your hub, which is the profile section. And that's where you can add information any that you didn't add before. You can add that. This is where you add the contact information, how to find me links and so on. And a sort of a top tip, I would say, if you're comfortable doing so, adding an avatar, a photo, really helps your page kind of pop out, particularly for those perspectives. You don't have to use a photo if you don't want to. You could upload an image or whatever you'd like to include there. But if you don't include one, we just show the initials of your name. So it would just say DS for me there. So if you're comfortable doing that, if you're someone that uses avatar photos, I would strongly recommend you do that. Also, if you haven't yet added your institution, I would recommend you do that. So if I was at Harvard, for example, you could just type some of that words from the institution name in there, and it will pop up and show you a suggested list there, so you can get the right affiliation with the different flags where we have, Birmingham, UK, Birmingham, Alabama, and so on. So yeah, make sure you add your institution. That helps people find your work. It's better for search engines. It also means we can roll up all of your work and include it on your institutional showcase as well, your university showcase. So another top tip is to add that institution affiliation. Everything that you've seen so far is also optimized for mobile. So if I just sort of simulate an iPhone here, you'll see this all works really nicely on phones and tablets as well as desktop. So we really do kind of optimize this so that the maximum number of people find your work. Okay, so everything that you've seen up till now is available completely free. You can register for free, you can use everything you've seen so far for free, but we do also have a premium offering, which I'm going to just mention a little bit about because some people have asked about this. So you get a number of things with Kudos Premium, one of which is rather than just the basic author profile page that we've got here with sort of text listing of your work, you get this beautiful personal showcase. So it's nice and colorful, it really stands out. And we show not just the text listing, but the beautiful images that you've selected for your publication. And as a reader, I think I would be much more likely to click on some of these and go through and read about those publications than the basic version. And we're doing a lot of work to expand this page and add sections and so on. So you'll see a lot of development on this page over the coming months as well. So premium users get their own personal showcase, premium personal showcase. Something else available to premium users is the ability to include infographics. So there's lots of research about infographics that suggests that if you include an infographic on your page, it can significantly boost citation potential. Some research says that they can be up to 27 times the citation potential. That varies, but it certainly explains it in a very visual way and makes it very clear to people. So on this particular page, if I scroll down, you'll see we've got a nice infographic on the page there, and you can click and see the large version of that. And it very kind of visually tells the story of your research. I think I've got another example as well on a different topic that I can show you. Yeah, there it is. It really kind of helps it pop. And if you have an infographic created, obviously that's very, very sort of social media friendly. You could tweet that, you could mention it on LinkedIn and so on. So if you're premium, then you can go to your edit page and scroll down, and there will be a little panel there where you can upload your image and include that infographic as well. And we call it infographic. It doesn't have to be an infographic. If you've got a really beautiful image from your research that you think would fit there, you can include that as well. So maybe it's a mass spectroscopy image or some sort of research image that you want to include there. It doesn't have to be an infographic. And if you'd like to get an infographic but don't know how to get started, we have various partnerships where we can recommend people that can create a nice infographic for you. So do get in touch with us and we'll be happy to help you with that. Something else that premium members get is the ability to add resource links. So here's a page about the social strategy of baboons, one of my favorite articles. And if you scroll down, you'll see that there's resource links here to press releases, interviews, radio interviews, images, and so on, related content, related research. And that really helps set your work in context. So it really helps other people understand how your work fits in. And those links out, often you'll get reciprocal links back that help the search engines discover your page as well. So it's very, very easy to add those links. There's another example here where someone's added the open access version, videos, press releases in different languages, Twitter threads, and so on. So it's a really nice way to set your work in context. Really easy to add. So if you're a premium user, you can scroll down, and at the bottom of the page are the resources. So these are those resources that you saw, and you can add to that. You can add the type of resource. Is it a video? Is it a data set, press release, project, and so on? And then you just type in the title, the link, and a brief description, and then that is live for you. So that's available. And then the final thing to mention for premium users is the advanced metrics as well. So rather than just getting the overview, the basics, that panel at the top, you also get a lot more analytics. So you get the time series of multiple metrics there. You can see how that's varied over time. Those little A's on there are when the author undertook an action. So you can start to see the correlation between taking an action and getting the results. We also plot those all metric scores over time and show you the effectiveness of all of the different sharing, those share labels that we looked at earlier. There they all are. And I've got an example from Charlie, in fact, here to show how she's used share labels for handouts, conference things. There's a QR code that I mentioned earlier. So you can really get quite creative and learn very quickly that some of the actions you take will have a really big effect and other actions will be less effective. So you can spend your limited time, because obviously you're busy people, you can spend your limited time in the most effective way. So that's just a quick sort of mention of what's available for premium. If you want to find out more on the hub, click on the premium tab, and more information is available there about premium. And also just to mention that we also have a version of Kudos for universities as well. So if you're at a university and you're considering how this might work for your department, your group, your lab, or your university, then talk to us and we can sort of tell you a bit more about our program for universities. So there's a question, I guess, which is, does all this work? And the answer is yes, very, very pleasingly. It does work. So we found that typically people will spend about 15 to 20 minutes creating their page. And if you've spent 18 months, 2 years doing the research, surely it's worth 50 minutes of your time to create a nice story page on Kudos. But in terms of how effective it is, there was some research undertaken by a leading university a couple of years ago that found if you use the Kudos tools to share and explain your work, that can lead to a 23% growth in full text downloads, so full text views of the full text publication on the publisher site. And that was actually written up in PLOS One, and there is the reference for that. So yes, Kudos really does work. It really is worth your time, whether you're using the free version to get started, or whether you want to use the premium version to really boost your readership and citation potential. It is effective, and hundreds of thousands of people have found it to be so. So that is the end of the demo. I'm just going to mention, I mentioned premium earlier, just to mention that's what you get with premium. The showcase, the citation building tools, the infographics, the links, the metrics, and so on. And I mentioned a bonus feature, so I'm really pleased to say that we have a bonus feature for you. We're offering a £25 discount on premium for the next 2 weeks. So normally it's £79 a year. It's £54 a year as a result of being on this webinar. And we'll send you sort of details of that when we send the follow-up information there if you're interested in that. Okay, so I think we are now at the stage where hopefully you've been typing in your questions into the chat box there. So I'm going to switch over and take a couple of your questions now. So yeah, thank you for the questions. So Tatiana had a question. Thank you for that, Tatiana. The abstract of my article has 500 views on Kudos, but nobody reads the article. What should I think about this situation? Well, that's a really good question, because some people will read the plain language summary and they may think that is actually enough to cite the work. They may be busy and don't want to read the full thing. So actually, in terms of citations, that might be that they got what they needed from that as well. But what I would suggest is try sharing on some different channels. Try some channels that you wouldn't normally use. Email signature files can be really effective because we send a lot of emails. Include a QR code on your poster at poster sessions and so on. That would be really effective as well. So yeah, I would try a couple of different things there, and by using the premium service and sort of really adding those images and building up your portfolio on one page, that should help drive more people to read your page as well. Robin has asked, is it just articles, or can I also use add books and book chapters? Absolutely. So anything that has a DOI issued by Crossref, which is what all publishers essentially use, whether it's a book chapter, or an article, or a standard, they can all be included. So when you're on adding your thing, if you just add the DOI, that will tell you whether that's available in there as well. So yeah, you can use that. Another question, what does it take to get to 100% completion score for our publication? That's a really good question. So essentially what you need to do is fill in all the fields, and you need to share it, I think it is 3 times in total, and that gets you to 100%. So some things are weighted more than others. So adding a plain language summary to the what's it about, adding a featured image are the 2 really key things that help. And then getting your co-authors to add their perspectives can be really impactful as well, because then that taps into their networks if they're also sharing and mentioning it in presentations as well. So yeah, that's a good way to get to 100%. Another question here in terms of, should I start just with one article, or should I actually be explaining multiple articles? So if, for example, you've claimed through ORCID, then you might have 100 publications that have all come through. You're not going to do 100 all at once. I would say start with your most recent publication, or the one that you think is going to be most impactful, and try that out first of all. So explain that, add an image to that, and then you can then sort of follow on from that. We had one researcher that used to sort of block out 15 minutes every day during their lunch break, and they would actually explain one new publication every day and went through their sort of back catalogue over many years. So yeah, there's some good suggestions there. But yeah, I would do that. Okay, also another question in terms of how can I add articles that don't have a DOI or a URL? That's a really good question. So we do have some pre-publication work, so it hasn't yet been assigned a DOI, or indeed it might be part of a project. It might be a piece of work that's not a publication, it's more of a body of work. So we do also have tools to enable you to actually create stories for those pages as well. We can talk a bit more about that offline, but yeah, it's certainly possible to include things that don't have DOIs, and you can also add resource links to anything as well. It doesn't have to have a DOI, so it can be a data set, a blog post, an image, a video, and so on, and that can also really help drive up the readership of your page. So any other questions coming in? I think we have hit most of them. A couple of you have asked the same question. But I think that we are just about out of time. So thank you all very much for watching. As I mentioned, we will be making the links available after this, so you can watch the recording again. We'll also include details of the discount. So if you want to try Kudos Premium, then we'll invite you to do that. And then next month, we have the next webinar in this series on the 17th of May, which is all about getting more readership and citations for your work. So I'd encourage you to sign up for that. It's a free webinar. And also we have the back catalogue of our webinars from this series all available on the website as well. So if you want to go back and look at some of those, maybe you didn't join us for those, or you want to share those with colleagues, then feel free to do that. But thank you very much. It's been great to have you with us today, and do get in touch if we can help. Thank you so much.